All right, guys, you can start posting your answers in the chat, please. Yeah, I see a response from Nathan. Thank you. The others, you can start posting your answers as well, so we can take them up together. All right. Let's put in some of your answers here. Okay. I'm gonna post them here in the chat. Okay, let's get through the first one here. So this one was by Nathan. Nathan, can you please read your answer here for the class?
As I rose up from the ground, the world looked like it stopped. In the neighborhood, everyone froze. Rain was in the air, and there was nothing but silence. It was This was very uncanny because it never happened before. Suddenly, I noticed something on the ground when I got up from was a what was a remote control. There was many functions on it. Uh, such as abridging time, stop it, and go back in time. When I clicked on start, the neighborhood went back to being loud and rain was pouring back down. However, I should never give this to anyone, or else anything could happen.
Okay. So the prompt is about waking up, realizing that you have the power to stop time. How do you use it, right? So in your response, let's take a look from the beginning. So as I rose up from the ground, the world looked like it stopped. In the neighborhood.
Oh, I was a little late in class, so I did not notice the prompt that well. So,
Okay,
yeah.
no worries. In the neighborhood, everyone froze, rain was in the air, and there was nothing but silence. This was very uncanny because it never happened before. Suddenly, I noticed something. So, the word of uncanny means something that is usually it's an adjective, so it's meant to describe something. So, in this example here, an uncanny knack means that an uncanny um, like the word for that is uh tendency, right? Like an uncanny tendency to win in big races, an uncanny likelihood that to do something, right? Something is uncanny, and in this case, it's your tendency, your personalities, things, those kind of things is what you would use that word with. So let's take a look at this example here. Um, this was very uncanny because it never happened before. Suddenly, I noticed something. On the ground where I got up from was a remote control. There are many functions on it, such as abridging time. So abridging is about to lessen time, right? So abridging time wouldn't make too much sense here. Um, so I would actually take out the abridging here and then just replace it with stopping time. And I'll tell you where to put abridging uh, in this response. So let's put stopping. Now go back to the word abridging is to lessen something while remaining or keeping the other important elements there. So abridge basic principles was mentioned there. So here we can say, um, when I clicked on start, the neighborhood went back to being loud and rain was pouring back down. However, I should never give this to anyone or else anything could happen. I would say it is possible for something undesirable to happen, right? Because when you say anything could happen, like it's not specific enough to what we want to say. When you mention, however, it means like but, right? Like something the whatever you're saying prior to the however is one point, and then after you and once you say however, you're trying to say like the opposite of that. So and typically in this case, it's like a negative thing that could happen. So you want to mention um possible for something undesirable to happen. So I would just say it like that. All right, so let's take a look here again. As I rose up from the ground, the world looked like it stopped. In the neighborhood, everyone froze, rain was in the air, and there was nothing but silence. This was very uncanny because it never happened before. Suddenly, I noticed something. On the ground where I got up from was a remote control. There were many functions on it, such as stopping time and going back in time. Here. When I clicked on start, the neighborhood went back to being loud. Then you can say here, um, just think of the word. So I'll ask you, Nathan, where do you think you could put a bridging here? Like where do you think in your response, where would you fit a bridging? Maybe,
Uh, well, bridges to lessons of something. So,
yeah.
I don't know, like maybe like lesson, like how like I can lessen, uh, I don't know, conflicts in the world, like or mistakes that you,
Yeah.
for example, like for that last sentence, you could replace like something like to abridge time to like, wait, not abridge time.
You can abridge,
Um,
you can abridge.
abridge like mistakes by stopping time. Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's what I could have done.
Yeah. A lot of time the word abridge is used when it comes to like rights. So like your rights have been abridged, meaning that your rights have lessened. So there are many functions on it, such as stopping time. When I clicked on start, the neighborhood went back to being loud. You could even say that like um, and people's rights were abridged or um, like you abridged a little bit. Um, let me think of another example. It's usually used in the sense of like politics when we talk about rights. I'm just gonna think of a way to put it into here. What we did say would make sense. Um, when I click on start, the neighborhood went back to being loud, and the freedom of the residents was abridged. possibly take this part out? Let's just say, when the neighborhood went back to being loud, there could have been, a problem happening there. The freedom of the residents was abridged. So if it was really loud and rain was happening, then the residents had to go back inside the house, right? So their freedom was lessened. They could not be out anymore because it was too loud and it was, it was raining and it wasn't safe, so they had to go back in. So I guess in this case, you can use it like that as well. And then you said, however, I should never give this to anyone, or else it is possible for something undesirable to happen. That's it. It's a good job. Okay. George, could you read your response, please?
Yeah. I woke up to some silence only to realize that time had completely stopped at my will. At first, I used my power to reach boring class and extend my weekend, but soon I discovered its true potential. When time frozen, I could prevent accidents, fix mistakes, and even change fate. Yet I wonder if altering time would eventually change me too.
Okay. Awesome. So I woke up to an uncanny silence only to realize that time had completely stopped at my will. At first, I used my power to abridge boring classes and extend my weekends. Here it says good. You can maybe add another line here about like what you would do on the weekend, so you can be a little bit. You can be a bit more descriptive there. So, at first, I use my power to abridge boring classes and extend my weekends, so I can have more free time. And then here you say, but soon I discovered its true potential. With time with time being frozen. With time being frozen, I could prevent accidents, fix mistakes, and even change fate. Yet I wondered if altering time would eventually change me too. So that's good. Next one, Amy, could you read your response, please?
I opened my eyes and I realized that the world had stopped. Uh, I think that this is not mine.
Uh, sorry, this is Melinda's, right? Yeah, I think this is Melinda's. Melinda, could you read yours, please?
I opened my eyes. Um, Sorry, I'm in the car right now. I opened my eyes and I realized that the world has stopped. The people on the streets were completely frozen and the cars were still. I was confused and then excited because I was the only one that could move. I walked through the streets and moved straight and took.
Hey, Melinda, you're cutting
I,
out a bit. Could you read from here, Melinda?
where?
Where I walked through the streets?
Oh, I walked through the streets and moved strangers' arms and took my time. I knew that I had no mistakes because everything was frozen. After I did everything I could possibly do, I suddenly realized being the only one that can move, I wasn't really alive.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, I opened my eyes and I realized that the world has stopped. The people on the street were completely frozen and the cars were still. I was confused and then excited because I was the only one that could move. I walked through the streets and moved strangers' arms and took my time. I knew that I had no mistakes because everything was frozen. After I did everything I could possibly do, I suddenly realized being the only one that can't move, I wasn't really alive.
This is the one that I deleted.
Um, okay. I'll put your new one then, because the new one has the two words that you have to use, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the one here. So you posted two responses, right?
Mhm.
Okay. I opened my eyes and I realized that the world had stopped. The people on the street were completely frozen and the cars were still. I was confused and then excited because I was the only one that could move. I walked through the streets and moved strangers' arms and took my time. I knew that I had no mistakes because everything was frozen. After I did everything I could possibly do, I suddenly realized being the only one that could move, I wasn't really alive. The stillness around me felt strange, almost uncanny, like I was in a place where time itself has forgotten me. It was all too abridged. So, okay, let's see here, right? The word abridge means to lessen something, and uncanny means you know, abnormal or something that is like uh it surpasses ordinary, something that is very, very like different. So it's like an unusual thing, and it's usually meant to say like an overwhelming amount of something, right? So let's look at the first word, which is uncanny. The stillness around me felt strange, almost uncanny. Um, I guess the best way to put this one, let's see here. Okay, one second. The stillness, you can say this. A strange feeling was quite uncanny, like that. Does that make sense? So like we're describing the feeling itself, right? Because it is an adjective. Uncanny is an adjective. When we have an adjective, we're describing something. Like in this case, we're describing the feeling itself. So instead of saying like the stillness around me felt strange, almost uncanny, we can say the strange feeling was quite uncanny. Like I was in a place where time itself had forgotten me. So I'll take this part out. And if we're abridged, it's about how, the value or time itself has lessened, right? So my joy, um, the joy that whatever joy I experienced was all too abridged. Because when you should never start off a sentence by just saying it was or it is. You always want to introduce a subject at the start of every sentence, because sometimes whoever's reading your response might not know what you're referring to when you say something like it is or it was, right? So in this case, we can say, we can start off by talking about introducing the subject, which is, let's say, whatever joy I experienced. Um, was all too abridged. Okay, there you go. Okay, last one was here. This is Amy's response. Amy, could you please read this response?
I woke up and found an uncanny silver watch beside my bed. I was curious and picked up the watch. To my astonishment, there were two buttons on it, both mysterious. I tried out the first button, and I saw that everything had stopped moving. I was stunned and guessed that this button could stop time. I was excited and pressed the other button, finding out it was the reverse button. Carefully, I put the watch into my right pocket. When I was taking part in a piano competition, I accidentally forgot what I was supposed to play. Suddenly, I remembered that I had a watch which could stop time. I pulled out the watch and pressed the first button. Time stopped. I remembered the piece that I played and started time again. I was happy that I abridged the chance for my competitors to win.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, here, this is a good response. So I woke up and found an uncanny silver watch beside my bed. So uncanny, right? The meaning of that is overwhelming amount of something. So it's like a excessive amount. So it's a lot of like passion or a lot of something, right? So here in this response, if we're saying if we're saying a silver, like what you want to say it in a way that you're describing it's like an irregular amount of a specific object, right? So I woke up and found um, an uncanny, like an uncanny feeling or uncanny ability. The resemblance between them is uncanny. So it's like that. That's how you would do it. Um, I woke up and let me think of a way to fit your context. Um, and I woke up and it was here. You could probably do it like this. I woke up and had an uncanny feeling that my silver watch was in my room. So when you use the word uncanny, try to put it right next to the specific subject, which is in this case feeling. So I woke up and had an uncanny feeling that my silver watch was in my room. Put it like that. Like you can't like you wouldn't be able to say something like uncanny silver object because like uncanny is used about, you know, like a feeling or like your passion for something. It describes it cannot be used to describe like an actual like object. You know what I mean? So that's how I would word it like this in the red. I was curious and picked up the watch. To my astonishment, there were two buttons on on both sides here. So I'll take this part out and then put here um, both sides and then put a comma and then you can say mysteriously, right? So that's how I would do that. I tried out the first button and I saw that everything had stopped moving. I was stunned and guessed that this button could stop time. I was excited and pressed the other button, finding out it was the reverse button. Carefully, I put the watch into my red pocket. When I was taking part in a piano competition, I accidentally forgot what I was supposed to play. Suddenly, I remembered I had a watch which could stop time. I pulled out the watch and pressed the first button. Time stopped. I remember the piece that I played and started time again. I was happy that I abridged the chance for my competitors to win. Yep, that's good. Okay, awesome. Okay, so today as well, we're gonna talk about this novel. It's called The Time Machine. So it's about something that actually just invents a time traveling machine, right? Where you can actually time travel into the future, and humanity has evolved into different species. So some of the themes of this novel is time travel, how humans progress over time, right? As time goes on and on, how do we evolve as human beings to be better adapted to our environment, right? And then we talk about class divisions. So between different people in society, there's the class, their status and things like that, how that's separate. And we talk about how technology also evolves and gets better over time, right? So for example, now we have computers, but 120 years ago, there were not computers that existed. So now let's say 200 years from now in the future, there might be other kind of technology, flying cars, all kinds of things can exist. So some of the themes of this talks about technology and how that's evolved over time. And even having better technology might not always be a good thing for society as well, right? So that's also important to think about. So what I'll do here is I'll read the summary for you all, and then I'll get a volunteer to read the context and a volunteer to read the passage of this specific text. So basically, the summary of this book is you have someone that is remembering when they went to a dinner party and they saw a time traveler that introduced a time machine. After testing that machine, they got transported into the year 802, 701, and he finds Eloy. And what is Eloy? It's a race. It's a race of people. So it's like a tribe of people. They're peaceful, but they're quite weak. They live above ground. And then this person who discovered Eloy, he initially believes that they're a pinnacle of human evolution. He discovers that they fear the Morlocks, who live underground and control the world's machinery. So you have two different tribes of people. One is Eloy, one is Morlocks. The time traveler learns that the Morlocks, they were once the working class. They've now evolved into like monsters that prey on the Eloy. So Morlocks is like more powerful than Eloy, right? After his time machine is stolen by the Morlocks, which as we know now, they're monsters. They've taken away the machine. He struggles to get that time machine back. So as you can see, the time machine has gotten to the hands of the evil people. So the time traveler can escape. He journeys further into the future. He sees what's happening to Earth over time, and then he tells the story of this happening. So here is a passage in the bottom paragraph here, a passage from this is an actual passage from the book, and the context is what the passage is about. So can I get a volunteer to read the context for us, please? Go ahead, Amy.
This passage occurs after the time traveler has spent some time in the distant future, observing the Eloi and beginning to understand the fate of humanity. He reflects on his own insignificance in the vast timeline of the universe, questioning whether the Eloi truly represent progress or decline.
Awesome. Can I get a volunteer to read the passage, please? Go ahead, Amy.
Looking at the stars suddenly dwarfed my own troubles and all the gravities of terrestrial life. I thought of the vast process of the drift of the solar system through space and the tiny ephemeral lives of men. I felt that I had something to tell those men of the future. But what? If they were indeed the apex of civilization, I was merely an Ancra
Anachronism,
an
yes.
anachronism,
Yeah.
a relic of the past that they had long outgrown. Yet I doubted that the perfection of their world, for I had seen that the shadows under the bright sunlight. And as I stood there, watching the constellations that were already sifting into unfamiliar forms, I felt, for the first time, the true loneliness of the traveler in time.
Yes. Very good. So George or Nathan, can you tell me what do you think this passage is about? George, could you tell me? In your understanding, what do you think this passage is talking about? It's okay if you don't understand it completely. Just I just want you to kind of like try your best to describe it.
Uh,
Any
I
idea?
think it's talking about learning about time traveler.
Yeah. What specifically?
Uh, when he sees not so plant or history are passing away, and I mean when he travels a really long time, he feel very lonely.
Yeah. So he's talking a lot about like if you can see from the second sentence as well, like he's trying to go through the solar system and he's seeing how he wants to tell the men of the future, he felt like he had to tell the men of the future something. He's trying to decide what that is. And he's trying to understand how he would communicate with the future version of civilization. And he doubted the perfection of their world. And he's basically trying to say that he's feeling very lonely as he's traveling through time, and he wants to think of how he can communicate with the people of the future and how their civilization is. So that's what's happening over there. So with the question over here, what realization does the time traveler come to in this passage? What do you what do you all think that the answer would be here? Which option? Yes, Amy, you said option C, that is correct. Good job. And then for the second one, what does the passage suggest about the time traveler's feelings toward the future? It is C. So good job, Amy. So he's trying to if you go back to the passage again, let's take a look. Whoever put option A, let's try to understand uh how this may not be present there and why A might not be the best answer. So he feels completely at home in the future world. So let's take a look at the passage itself to see what's going on. So looking at this at these stars suddenly dwarf my own troubles. Dwarfing your own troubles means to like reduce your troubles, to be less stressed about things. I thought of the vast process of the drift of the solar system through space and the tiny ephemeral lives of men. I felt that I had something to tell I felt that I had something to tell those men of the future, but what? If they were indeed the apex of civilization, I was merely an anachronism. a relic of the past that had long outgrown. He doubted the perfection of their world. See what he's saying here? I doubted the perfection of their world, meaning that you are having guesses if their world is so perfect. He does not actually believe, the time traveler does not actually believe that, those who are living in the future actually have a perfect world. So he wants to communicate with them about that. So if you look over here, that is the answer. That's why C is the answer here. He is troubled by what he has seen and questions whether humanity has truly advanced. So that's the answer there. So um, how does the time traveler's observation of the stars contribute to the novel's themes of time and human insignificance? Do you have any volunteers here that want to take a stab at this question? If any of you can just raise your hand and just like try to attempt to answer this question, and we can like talk about it together. Okay, so the answer to this question is that the time traveler's reflection on the stars really reinforce the novel's exploration of time as an overwhelming force that makes human lives actually pretty insignificant. The vast movement of celestial bodies, so like, stars and things like that in space, as they move across the universe, it is it contrasts and is very different than how humans actually exist in the world. So the time traveler actually thinks about stars or looks at stars a lot, right? Even in the passage that we read here, he's looking at the stars, he's going through space, he's trying to, and then what's happening here is that how he views space and the stars, it actually indirectly talks about what the meaning of time is and human insignificance is. And those are some of the themes of this novel, right? Time, human insignificance. Humans are not as important as they make it out to be in the vast, reality of how the world is, right? Because humans, they can become extinct as you move from um, one time in one era of the world to another. The way humans are at that time is not necessarily going to be the same as how humans are later on, right? And that's what this novel is also talking about. So, as constellations, which is how the stars are, the patterns of stars in space, as those things shift, that really is trying to emphasize that time continues to flow regardless of human history. So, human history, however humans were in the past, that's not as relevant. That's really what the meaning is. And he's observing how stars are always going to be forming patterns and constellations, regardless of how humans are and how humans have always been. So the world will always continue to move, and it does not matter at all about how humans are. So humans' progress is not guaranteed. That is another thing that's important here. So it's not only about how humans act, how humans behave, or how what humans contribute to. It's not as important as compared to how the world is always going to evolve and continue to like progress. And looking at the stars and how the stars form is an example that you don't even need humans to do that, right? So that's what it's talking about here. Next question is, how does the phrase "the shadows under the bright sunlight" serve as a metaphor for the time traveler's view of the Eloi and their society? Anybody want to guess the answer to this question? Go ahead, Amy.
I think that the shadows under the bright sunlight. I think the Eloi and the society is the like shadows because the I think the bright sunlight is like the Morlocks because the Eloi is like being controlled by the Morlocks, I think.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah. So this phrase itself is saying that, you know, Eloi can seem to live in a peaceful world amongst themselves, but there are a lot of dangers that exist, right? So Eloi can be very, very carefree, but in reality, they're actually pretty weak, and the Morlocks can attack them. The Morlocks are the ones that are very, very dangerous, right? So the metaphor, which is the shadows under the bright sunlight, what does that metaphor means like? Um, using like a specific word or phrase to compare to something else without using the word like or as in that comparison, right? So you can use a metaphor to describe many different kinds of things. Um, so the shadows under the bright sunlight is the metaphor here, and it's talking about how there can be a false version of the world. So we can think that as time goes on, life will get better for humans, life will get better for people, but that's actually false because you can always think like bright sunlight, the world's gonna always be sunshine and rainbows, but there's shadows that are under that. That is what it's trying to say. There's always gonna be darkness in this world. It's not just gonna be light. So that's what it's talking about there. Okay, let's go on here. Okay, one thing we'll cover now is about a problem solution essay. And what that is an essay that uses analysis of problems and solutions to argue a point. So what basically there's three strategies to do a problem solution essay, right? One is you want to actually describe the problem, explain the solution, and explain what comes out of that. So the outcome of that solution. So it's a logical progression from problem to solution to outcome. So the first thing is, what is the problem, right? So we have a specific problem that you or your colleagues that are concerned about. What is that? How can you identify that? Then you want to analyze the problem itself. What are the causes of it? What are the symptoms of it? Symptoms mean like side effects of or certain things that can help you identify that as a problem. So using like a medical kind of analogy here, like if you have a flu, right? Yeah, let's say you're sick, you have a flu. What is the symptom of a flu? High fever, right? Runny nose. Those are symptoms. Those are things that characterize, that give that the evidence of having that kind of problem. So in this case, what are the symptoms of the problem that we're talking about? So then the next thing is, what are the methods that are being used to deal with that problem? Then we want to get into the solution aspect of it. Select the best kind of solution, give pros and cons, but mostly want to touch on the pros because this is more solution oriented. Then you want to evaluate that solution, talk about how we can actually implement that solution, put it to work, and then talk about the outcome, what results out of that solution. So that's what we want to do here. I would like for all of you now to um, read this paragraph independently and then describe the solution that was used here and whether this is actually the best solution. So I'm sure all of you have heard of the term cyberbullying and what that is, right? It's those who are being mean and rude and saying very, very like disrespectful things and bullying each other online. And it'll talk now about what the problem is. It'll talk about symptoms of it, then it'll mention this, the solution to it. So it's a very simple read. Take about 5 minutes or so to read it, and another 5 to 6 minutes to answer the question, and then paste your answers in the chat, and we'll take it up in about 10 minutes from now. Thank you guys. Okay, if y'all can start posting your responses in the chat, please, we'll take it up together. All right, let's see here. Yeah, I'm just going to post one of the responses here. We'll just quickly take a look at it.
Could I just look at the paragraph?
Yeah.
Uh, okay.
Okay. So there are many benefits on implementing stronger policies and educational programs to teenagers to prevent cyberbullying. For instance, if people add more restrictions to social media for their children, then there would be then here, let me just change the grammar here. Then there would be then there would be less likely. Wait one sec. For instance, if people add more restrictions to social media for their children, I think you're talking about children here, so I guess you can keep it. Yeah. Then they would be less likely to be exposed to cyberbullying from anonymous people. In that way, teenagers can still stay on social media and be more protected and be more protected from things that can provoke their lives. So provoke uh may not be the best word here, but instead you could put in negatively impact lives. Additionally, educational programs can keep teenagers off social media and let them explore something new. This will improve self-esteem, and there are high chances that they will find something that they like that is off social media. With that, there will be several positive outcomes these solutions will provide. So this is good. The question was focused more on the solution and the effectiveness of the solution, right? So you want to emphasize more about the solution itself. So my feedback here is um, emphasize more on the solution and how to implement it, as well as the advantages of the solution, right? Because you do talk a lot about like the problem and things like that. And then, adding restrictions, those things are good, and educational programs. So talk about how educational programs as a solution, how it works, what's the advantages of doing that, how would you implement it? So maybe there will be like some kind of seminar in the schools that exist, a webinar online, these kind of things. Be a little specific with it. Oftentimes, your teacher, whoever kind of will read these kind of answers, responses from you, from all of you, they want to see the level of detail that you can incorporate in your response so they know that you know exactly what you're talking about and that you have fully fleshed out ideas. Okay. We'll now talk a little bit about literary devices. And what that is basically, um, types of English kind of phrases that are used to enhance specific kind of ideas. So alliteration, metaphors, similes, all these things. I'm sure you've heard of these um, types of literature, and they're known as literary devices. So we're going to take a look at some of those things. So literary elements and techniques, right? Literary elements, they exist in pieces of writing and they are used to build the narrative structure, the story. So a lot of it, for example, in Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, Hamlet, those kind of like pieces of literature, especially in the olden days. Literary devices are used to describe the story, describe the characters, the mood of those characters, the theme of it. So it's really important that you use literary devices. Let's talk about one example here called euphemism. A euphemism is an indirect, polite way to describe something that's awkward. Uh, you know, so it basically it is a way to, you know, um, describe something in a polite way without it being very, very awkward. Because if you say it directly, it can be a little inappropriate or insensitive. So, for example, the original sentence is Uncle Rob died last year. To incorporate a euphemism to change that sentence, you would say Uncle Rob passed away last year, right? It's more polite to say passed away compared to died. If you're in a company and you're going to get fired or you're going to lose your job, it's very rude, very, inappropriate to say like you're fired. Instead, incorporate euphemism to say it in a more polite manner. So like it's we're going to let you go. That's an example there. Okay. As you wrap up today's session, the homework for you all to do is to review all the slides from today's session. And then there's a writing assignment that I would like for you to do, which is writing a real story related to inflation. Do all of you know what inflation is? You can just put a thumbs up if you do. I see Nathan knows. How about the others? If not, inflation is basically an economic response to a weak, you know, kind of environment in society. So let's say, the cost of living is going up, cost of food is going up, cost of housing is going up. There's inflation that exists, and there are ways to deal with that inflation, right? So inflation is a problem. It means the cost of your goods is going up. The value of your dollar, how far your dollar takes you is going to be less. So let's say you get paid $500 a week, right? Before inflation, you can buy more stuff with $500 a week. With inflation now, you can buy less with $500, right? So inflation is a problem because your money doesn't have as much purchasing power as things are costing more money and your money's staying the same and actually decreasing in value, then there is a problem called inflation. There are ways to solve inflation, or at least to mitigate or lower its kind of negative effects on society. So I would like for you all to, first of all, talk about inflation. What is it? What's the problem? And then come up with some solutions to it, one or two solutions. This is a short piece of writing, no more than 300 words. And if you all can do that by next week, that would be great. And you could post it in the forum. So yeah, that is all. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.